Hi everyone, my name's Lisa, and my job this week is to go ahead and summarize Rossi Chapter 3 for everyone. And what I'd like to begin with is quite simply cutting out all of Rossi's chapter was wonderful, but it's mainly about evaluation questions. So according to Rossi, in Chapter 3, program evaluation is fundamentally an endeavor that gathers and interprets information about program performance to answer questions relevant to decision making or at least of appreciable interest to one or more program stakeholders. If I were to shorten down this summary, the most important thing that I could get from this statement is that the most important thing is in gathering and interpreting the information in order to figure out if a program is working. Some requirements that Rossi mentions that are great for evaluations or good for evaluations are, one of the most important requirements is the creation of the questions that the evaluation should address. Later on in this presentation, I will go ahead and talk about an example of a good evaluation question. And for ease, I have made a handout that will also be attached with this discussion as we approach the logic model project. In this class, you're going to need to interview, and some of the questions that were on that handout were suggested by Rossi in getting a good amount of information to develop that logic model project. So, back to our presentation. One of the most important requirements is the creation of the questions that the evaluation should address. Good questions are best formulated by speaking and interacting with stakeholders. Stakeholders should also be engaged in the process of evaluation, which increases the likelihood that they will understand, appreciate, and make effective use of the findings. It is important for me to mention here that not all of the people doing the evaluations have done the necessary groundwork ultimately affecting the presentation. So we have stakeholders who say we need this program evaluated. We have team members saying we need this program evaluated, but they haven't put in the time or the participation to actually get a good investigation. So stakeholders need to be involved. Oftentimes, though, you have to be leery of too much of a stakeholder's involvement in a program evaluation. Ultimately, it could spin the findings, or you can find a financial investment in the that shouldn't be there. So this leads us to the next topic in Rossi Chapter 3. What makes a good evaluation question? According to Rossi, there are some things that make a great evaluation question. Number one, the evaluation question should take shape by the functions that they must perform. Number two, a good question must identify dimensions of a program that may have issues. Number three, the questions must be reasonable and appropriate. Number four, the questions must be answerable. You can't go ahead and provide questions to somebody who is a director of a program and leave them so vague that you don't get an answer that you want. If you don't get the answer that you want, it's because the question wasn't precise. And number five, the questions must take into consideration the wants and needs of all participants in order to evaluate the program effectively. I know at my school, oftentimes the leader of our building, whom is a wonderful human being, often has expectations that he would like to set forth to our building. And because of the lack of clear communication, everyone walks away with a different message. And this ultimately affects the implementation of programs, and it ultimately affects the outcome of surveys and such. Just to make sure that you check out the handout that I created that holds a list of questions posed by Rossi. They may come in handy when interviewing a person, a director, about a program that has been or is being evaluated. This definitely will help you in completing the logic model project. Other ideas from Rossi. When evaluating a program, it is necessary to obtain input from stakeholders. First, you must identify those stakeholders. Second, you must obtain their views and questions about the evaluation. Just like you'd ask participants in this program, you would also ask the stakeholders, what exactly would you hope to get out of this evaluation process? Number 3, figure out if they are contributing money to a program. Very important. We see that money often sways results, and I'm going to continue on and not get sidetracked with that. Number 4, identify any political influence involved. And number 5, according to Rossi, use a snowball sampling approach to identify all stakeholders and their intention. A snowball sampling approach simply means you start with one stakeholder and then you ask if another stakeholder would like to be involved. Is there anyone else you can think of that we should question? You leave the question vague, and oftentimes people will go ahead and contribute more names. So you start with one name, and by the time you're done questioning, you have a plethora of data and information to use in your evaluation. Some topics to discuss with stakeholders. If stakeholders asked for an evaluation of a program, then it is necessary to figure out why is the evaluation needed, what are the program's goals and objectives, and did the program achieve its goals and objectives? And it is also necessary to differentiate between a program's goal versus its objective when doing an evaluation, because goals are often stated by programs in a very broad or abstract term. Objectives are specific statements that can be measured. An important task for an evaluator is to transform overly broad goals into very clear and specific objectives. According to Rossi, priority evaluation questions should be organized around a concept that generally concerns evaluators very much. Utilization. Okay, why are we asking these questions? How are we going to use these questions? How is this going to affect our program evaluation? Evaluation results are rarely intended by evaluators to be knowledge for knowledge's sake, but are intended to be useful and to be used by those with responsibility for making decisions about programs. This is important. We see this all the time in the field of education. We see this all the time in the field of business. Why are we doing this? What's going to be the outcome? If I'm going to participate and get these answers to these questions, what is going to be the outcome? How are we going to fix the program? Are we really going to get results? Lastly, the questions are just the beginning of the program theory. So we all know that the program theory is the idea behind the program that leads us to the logic model. So the program theory is a basis for formulating and prioritizing evaluation questions, designing evaluation research, and interpreting the evaluation's findings. The program theory includes some sub-content. Number 1, the organizational plan, how to gather and utilize our resources. Number 2, service utilization plan. Is the program providing what it said it would do? And number 3, impact theory. How did this program or intervention bring about the desired benefits that we were hoping from the program in the first place? I hope that you have gained some knowledge on effective questioning and in the evaluation process. And please take a look at the handout and utilize it for your logic model project. I hope you all have a great evening, and thank you for your time.